the stories of a person of color in that situation, going through divorce, gaining custody, and then having your daughter being taken away from you. And then once you have found her, having her come back was not as easy as you anticipated, because you thought it would be a quick little trip back and forth and that was it. Not the case at all. And as a result of the way the court system works in the UK, that was another wake-up call for you, because you realize that it's not all the same across the board. So that was another side of the world that you were not really familiar with. And the fact that you are also a Black man as well too, trying to bring more awareness to this stuff. If it wasn't for the help of Pierce Bronson and bringing that awareness, then the courts would have never responded as quickly. So there's a lot of complicated layers that I really had not realized that was out there with your story, but yet here you are still doing your thing. So, you know, I think that's really unique. And I'm hoping that with this conversation, that I'm hoping in time that people will give the time of the day to listen to your story, and then in hope somewhere down the line that would bring something to change the system for you to be able to not just only see your daughter, but for other people who are in the same position, whether it be a man or a woman, but someone who's in that same position as well too. Because as I said before, I think it's a very difficult thing to listen to, not just because I'm a parent, but it's just, I can't imagine that pain that you would go through, because I'm not going to pretend to know what it feels like. But I do know that if I was in that position, I don't know how I would react, because I am a very emotional person, but I'm also very sensitive as well too. So I could be I'm hoping that I would be more sensible in that regard. But it seems like you've handled yourself rather well in those periods of time where most people would probably just lose it. So, you know, I hope you don't mind me rambling on there, but I was just trying to give you your props about how important I think it was for me to now want to speak with you about what you've gone through and where you are with your career now, where you are with your life now. But there was a much more meaningful purpose behind with what you're doing that I think was very, very unique and very, very important as well.
Thank you. It's, you know, it's interesting when hands are dealt to you.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying when everything occurred, you know, with the child abduction and everything.
Yeah.
So the viewers can know what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Occurred. She brought everything back to Hollywood, and she goes, you know, you've been preparing for this your whole life. I'm like, right. What are you talking about? She goes, you're in the industry where you told no every day. Every day. You're a man of color where you've been told no since the day you were born. Mm. She goes, if anybody is prepared to handle this situation, it is you, my son. She goes, you thought going out to Hollywood and struggling and fighting and being on that hamster wheel was about that. But in actuality, it prepared you for something much bigger that you didn't know was going to happen down the line. Mm. And it's true, because when I walk indoors, no, I get told no every day. Every day, every audition. If I do 20 auditions this week and don't get a call back, I've just been told no 20 times. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. You know, so it's like you become this, and that was able to help me throughout. And as well as different characters that you play. Mm-hmm. You learn how to weave through things, because the average person is not in a negative way, but they just, whoever they are, just what they are. They very rarely.
They're sheltered in some regards, right. I think. Yeah.
They don't go outside that box. But when you play a myriad of characters, then when you're in a certain situation, you are then forced in some sense. Mm-hmm. I grew up South Side Chicago. Next thing I know, I'm in England, and the people making decisions about my life are walking around with horsehair wigs. Mind blowing. You know, I'm a brother from the South Side Chicago, and now I'm listening to a dude that's sitting there with a badly shaped wig sitting on his head like this here, and I'm staring at the wig. I'm staring at this wig, thinking, "Wow." And it's funny how my whole life films has always been such a huge part, from my mom working in theaters and being a projectionist, and that's how my love for the cinema began, going to work with her, watching from the booth and seeing everything, to even when I was in that situation in Europe with my daughter and my attorneys and my solicitors and barristers, literally if you saw pictures of them, people thought that my barrister was Dame Judi Dench and my solicitor was Dustin Hoffman in stature and look and everything. We're walking down the street and people are turning around and it looks like I'm walking with Judi Dench and Dustin Hoffman. Because, I mean, and that's all I kept seeing. I'm looking and they both said, yeah, we've heard it before many times. I'm like, you do know who you two look like? And they go, absolutely. And it's funny, even in my darkest hour, film has always been that arm that was wrapped around me.
That comfort.
Yes, there's not a point in my life where film did not get me through whatever hurdle I had. You know, that's always been my space. You know, I knew I stuttered horribly as a kid.
Yeah.
And what helped me again was film. Started writing.
Right, and rehearsing those lines and preparing for. Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
You know, all those different things. So you get ahead of the game and you start knowing, okay. And then people who I grew up with had no clue about these things. So
But do you still struggle with that now with the stuttering? Does that still come out from time to time, or is it pretty much gone at this point?
It's not gone. It's like I speak very quickly, which is interesting. Not when I act. It's like Mel Tillis, the singer, the country singer. When he sings, you can't tell. When I act, you can't tell unless I make it part of the character. There was a character I did in the film Paul's Promise that we shot.
I was trying to look for that movie. I couldn't find it on a streaming platform. Is that available anywhere where you can?
No, it's not out yet.
Oh, okay.
No. Paul's Promise doesn't come out until 2022.
Oh, okay.
Dean Cain and Ryan O'Quinn, that all comes out. Nancy Stafford, that all comes out in 2022. Okay. And
this is a film that you directed too.
No, this one here, I didn't direct this one at all.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Matt Reithmayr directed this film here.
Okay.
No, this is one period piece based on a true story and a book. You're thinking about the French film, Les Jeux de Pair. You think about Les Jeux de Pair.
I think you're right. Yeah. Okay.
You think about that one.
Okay.
This is, and it's interesting because even when I think, just now, when I'm thinking of something and I try to say it, I catch myself stuttering because I'm processing. But when I'm on camera or if I'm filming something, for some reason, it's like not even there.
Right.
It's weird how that switched. And then I think about watching the film Shakespeare in Love was one of the things that really resonated with me. Gwyneth Paltrow, obviously. Fiennes, not Ralph Fiennes. His
Joseph, his brother, yeah. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Joseph Fiennes? I think it's okay.
Joseph Fiennes. And what's interesting, the character that stuttered all throughout the film until they got on the stage that night. And everyone was expecting him to struggle. And then he comes out, he does it smoothly. And then when he finishes, he goes back and he's still that. That was me. You know, and I didn't quite understand it, but it just happened. And I realized that's because I'm at home when I'm in front of an audience. I'm at home when I'm on camera, when I'm writing something, when I'm creating, because it's like the world that I create is this Willy Wonka, Disneyland, Alice in Wonderland type thing.
But you would think that, you know, because again, being in front of an audience, in front of people in general, in some cases, for some people, that would actually be, I guess, viewed as a detriment to them because, you know, if you have a condition that, you know, in this case was stuttering, and then you're speaking in front of people, and if you're continuing speaking and people, you have that insecurity about yourself where people may look at you odd just because of the way you're speaking, you would think that, you know, doing that on a scale of on being on stage or on film, that would amplify that insecurity for yourself. Like, so did you ever have those experiences while on set or in the beginning parts of your career, as far as your acting is concerned, that you felt that kind of kick in where you have to, you know, reevaluate yourself to find a different way to go about it? Or would that just come naturally like that for you?
No, I never had that. I like to say that when God was passing out certain things, insecurity wasn't one of them. You know, he gave me a lot of things, I have to admit.
Okay.
So maybe I got in the confidence line too many times, you know.
Okay.
And my mom would say,
Like that. Okay.
oh, there's security line. No, that's for somebody else.
Okay. Okay.
So even when that happened, which was interesting, because my sisters used to say, you talk a lot for somebody that can't speak. You know, because
Okay.
I never let it stop me, you know, even through the phase. No.
Okay. Well, so then explain to me about, you know, the actual writing process, because I've heard you talk about it before, where you were writing or reading books or projects that you were assigned on in class, and then by the time you were in the classroom and having to prepare to give an answer, whether you were asked upon or the teacher was reaching out to ask anybody there, you were basically, you pretty much put yourself out there. So I know you mentioned about the sense of confidence you do have in yourself, but when you, because are you gaining more of that confidence because you have, in this case, rehearsed, or you just knew that I have it in me, I'm going to do it, I'm going to screw up, but that's okay, I'm going to keep doing it? What was the difference as far as the approach in that respect?
I think the approach was the fact that I never took myself seriously.
Okay.
So when I would do things, if I would trip, if I had broccoli in my teeth or a woogie in my nose, I'd be like, sorry, dog, my bad. Anyway, it keep right on going. And people would look at me, because most folks would try to hide those things. And
Right.
Embarrassment was never my thing.
Okay.
I never really got embarrassed about things. I, as they say in England, I take the piss out of myself. You know, I have no problem with not so much self-deprecation, but if I do something that is considered flawed,
right,
it's part of who I am, and it happens, and I just move on. And you know, I own it. I own it. I think that's what has always driven me, because I think most people get stopped at being told no, being questioned on why they're doing something. I remember my grandmother, when I was deciding to come out to California to be in the industry, she goes, "What's your plan B?" And I looked at my sweet old grandmother, and I said, "Well, Grandma, you know, plan B is for people that suck at plan A."
Yeah, I love that quote that you said that. Yeah.
You know? And I meant it.
Right.
I felt it. And as a young kid, I remember one Thanksgiving sitting around the table talking, and we had this crazy thing where everybody would go around and say what they kind of wanted written on their epitaph, you know, after they passed. How would you like to be remembered? I remember they going through Thanksgiving time, they going through each person, and I'm sitting there, and my family, was profanity, no swearing. I had my head down. I think I must have been about 10, 11, 12 or whatever. And I lifted my head up with a drumstick in my hand, and I said, "The motherfucker died trying." And went back and everybody is saying, did he just say that?
I love that.
You know, and the people
that's hilarious. I love that.
But those who know me today know that's pretty much it.
When I'm listening to your story, it's unique for me to hear how someone is going through the motions and yet still keep a smile on their face. It's not something that you see very often in a person that goes through what you're going through and still have that positive attitude, if you will. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, with whoever's going to be watching this here, when they get to see you talk and hear you share your stories, that they're really coming across somebody who's coming for a very genuine spot, because that's what I believe now. And I can see why Jesse likes working with you too. After working with you on Debt Collector 2, and then work with you on Hell Hath No Fury, and then moving on to White Elephant, because there's obviously, from what I'm gathering, if Jesse's bringing you back because he finds something very genuine in you as a person that he wants to keep around. So to me, it seems like that, you know, he's been putting himself around with a great group of people who he's seen a lot of potential in hopes that, you know, with what he's been able to put together, that more people will take more awareness. And that's how I came across you, from Debt Collectors too, and then moving on to Health Hath No Fury. So as a result of your work, you working with Jesse, that's where, as I said before, I came across. So, you know, I don't take that stuff for granted when I'm getting introduced to a new set of actors or new set of directors or writers or so on, because if the person is consistently getting better and they're bringing back the same people from previous work, there's a reason for all that there. So I don't mean to blab on about that sort of stuff, but I'm hoping that you know that you understand where I was coming from with that, because it's something that I truly do appreciate, and I take the time to look into the person's background to understand where they started and where they are with it now. Because again, this industry is not for the weak of heart, I would say, because it's a very rough business, where you mentioned before you hearing no's, but then you also have your personal life and still keep moving forward from that.
You know, the thing that's interesting, when I did Paul's Promise, I met with them. I actually met with them as a writer, not even
Okay.
a actor. I went to that meeting as a writer to kind of help punch up the script and kind of, you know, give them some notes. And in discussing the character, I talked about what is his gumbo soup. What do you mean? So then I discuss my daughter, I discuss my grandfather growing up, I discuss my grandmother, my mom, and all these different things. And I did that before I got to this topic. I said, the reason why I went off about these different things, I know you're probably thinking, why is he talking about his child's abduction and his mother's abduction? What does that have to do with our script? I said, well, that's my gumbo soup. You know what's in the soup. You know what's in this jambalaya. You know what's in this, you know what's the ingredients. You know, you got the sausage. If you're doing jambalaya, you got the sausages and you know, the beef, the chicken, whatever the case may be. I said, so you see what all this character or this person is coming from. What builds this person? I said, what is Jimmy's, the character that I played, eventually ended up getting the role and playing him? What was his gumbo soup? What were the ingredients that made him who he is? And I think all of us, if we look back on our lives, you, the fans watching, everyone can sit back and literally write down a list of which pieces of who they are came from. I know where my love of cinema comes from my mom. My storytelling comes from my grandfather. My smoothness comes from my stepdad, Claude Cannon. You know, I get that from Papa C. You know, my don't take crap from nobody comes from my biological father. It's you know, Bernard Terry. So you have all these things, and you able, and then more importantly, my adopted grandfather, Dr. Raymond Lark, he once said to me, he's a renowned artist, passed away from cancer, and he used to say to me, you show me a starving artist, I show you someone with poor marketing skills.
Interesting. Okay.
He would get his work. He has work at the Smithsonian. His name is Dr. Raymond Lark. And he was getting stuff in places before social media. So imagine sending packages this thick by snail mail to all these different places to get these grants and so on and so forth. He didn't let anything stop him. So when I started filming my own stuff, I took on that philosophy. Don't let things stop me. You know, I'm in Bulgaria doing something with John Claude, and then on my downtime, I'm shooting my own movie. You know, you find ways around it. You know, I have this thing where I say I turn my vacations into locations. I don't go anywhere without shooting something. If nothing else, I got some B-roll for something.
Right.
You know, and you just shoot and you go. I've shot at the Louvre. Sorry, Louvre, my bad if you're watching. But it's, you know, you just go and you do and you get it done. And so as an artist, there's many different ways to go about this career. And I think where Jesse and I connect is he does that. You say if he had $100 million, he could make absolutely. But Jesse is like that friend that comes over to your house and goes in the refrigerator and you've got a can of ravioli and 2 or 3 items and you think your refrigerator is empty. And he tells everybody to leave the kitchen and he goes in there and comes out with a masterpiece. And you're like, where the heck did this come from?
Yeah. That's a great analogy. I like that. Yeah.
Jesse's a master chef. And so where he and I connect is I'm that way in my own right. I'll go someplace and shoot something that no one else thought was possible. People was asking me, why did you shoot in the Louvre? You could have shot here at the Getty. I'm like, it's the Louvre, it's Paris, it's April. Did you really ask me that question? You know, it's like, but you know, some of the logic, but when you're an artist like Jesse and myself, first thing we do is throw logic out the window.
Okay.
We're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. Like we shot Hell Have No Fury in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, I remember.
He gave us all the protocol. You're gonna be safe. First thing he said is, here's the lowdown. We're gonna be safe. We're gonna be bubble. We're gonna be all these things. We're gonna be. He gave all the possible fears, concerns, and he waited and he was like, okay, so if you have any concerns, take some time, think about it. I was like, when do we leave? You could have stopped this conversation 40 minutes ago, but I didn't want to interrupt you. When do we leave? But he gave me such a list of things that we were going to do to be safe, and his vision of what he saw in this film. And my character actually isn't African American in the book of the script. He's actually white.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, and that's why I love Jesse. Jesse saw the character and he's like, but I really think this is you.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, so the character wasn't even initially, spoiler alert, wasn't even African American, you know, and he thought way outside the box. He imagined it's 1944, it's World War II. And there's things that may or may not appear on screen, but his thought is to give the audience something to think about. Yes, you come, you see the movie, you see the shoot them up, the bang them up, and everything else that we do, and you go about your business.
Right.
The way Jesse operates, and me too, because I'm a writer as well, we literally come to a meeting space here where he sees beyond what's on the page.
Yeah.
So what's being shot is one thing, but he's hoping that the audience in the midst of watching is thinking, wait a minute, this is a Black dude speaking French.
Right.
To people who probably wouldn't even shake his hand back in America, but they are reliant on him to tell them what's being said by the enemy. You know, and the power. This guy normally in any other circumstances would be totally dismissed.
Yeah.
And I love the way he thought that. And he gave me the freedom to, because I would come back with notes, because I'm a mad researcher.
Right.
Kind of like you in that regards. I go way beyond the surface. I'm peeling onions, I'm peeling.
Yeah,
onions.
yeah.
And I came up and I'm like, look, it's 44, which means that the guy was born in the 20s. He's a brother. He's a Black man in the army. I says, okay, so if he's born in the 20s, if Muhammad Ali had a problem in 1963 or 69 when he decided not to go into the military, imagine what it felt like 49 years early.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, and so that's the way we decided to play it. We played it from that, and we're hoping that people look beyond the words that's being said and think about, wait a minute, this dude, this is 1944. And he's sitting there and he's fighting a battle. He doesn't have any enemies, like Ali said. I have no problem with the enemy. My enemy is right here. And that's the way I played it. I played it like Ali said, doing his infamous, that magical speech he had one day, you know. You my problem. You my, you know, Ali was doing that rant.
Yeah, I remember.
You my oppressor. You my own people. I played it. I told Jesse I'm going to play it as if I was Muhammad Ali giving that speech without saying it.
Yeah, I did pick up on that. Yeah, you're right. So let me do this here, if you don't mind. So you're on the topic of the movie here. You know, this by the time this interview gets aired out, it'll be the week after the film's release from theaters. So I'm hoping you don't mind with me getting into spoilers here, because this is the part where I always gravitate to Jesse's films. And, you know, the last couple of years, a lot of his movies are mostly action movies, but I always gravitated to more of his development of the characters, you know, the story. The actions are great. That's the icing on the cake, but really it's the journey of the characters, of what you're seeing, what they're going through. And one of my favorite things that I always look forward to his movies is there's going to be a moment. I always know that there's going to be a time where there's going to be one or two characters, or maybe more. They'll have a sit down and they're just going to converse. And it's just going to be about things that you'll learn about the characters, right? certain things that maybe some people may not notice right away. And I mean, I talked to you before when we first conversed that I saw the movie. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, like well over 10 times because I told this to Dominic as well too, that when I'm looking at Jesse's work, I'm looking at where he started, what he's improved on, and then what has remained consistent. And that's always the most consistent things. And I always felt like that was always his bread and butter when it came to the story aspect of it. Um, and when I'm looking at the movie here with your conversation with George in the film, that's what maybe a 3-4 minute scene. And that right there for me was like, you knew right away that your character was probably the most nicest out of all the characters in the movie, right? There is no misconception about him. There is no like there is no shell shock issues with him. And from what you can gather, and he seems very grounded, very on point, and he understands his purpose of why he's there to begin with, because you have provided an incentive for the other guys to help when it came to translation. So, and I picked that up actually with I think the second or third time when I saw the movie. And then and hearing the conversation, because they told you, go over there. Right. So you saw the racism in that regard. Right. Exactly. Go over there, sit down, and just keep an eye on that guy. And I was like, oh, so probably he's probably has an ulterior motive that they're wanting him to do, but they didn't tell you to do anything other than just sit with the guy.
Exactly.
And then that's where you get to see the true colors, if you will, of where he probably wouldn't show, his personality to the guys. He's just pretty much being on guard, and then you let your guard down. Yeah, I'm from Harlem. Yeah, Nat King Cole, and he's like, oh yeah. I'm sorry, Louie Armstrong, and he's talking about the album, and you're conversing back and forth, and then you get killed.
Right.
And I was like, what? I was telling Dominic too that. Or was it Dominic? Was Jesse? I think it might have been Jesse. I thought that was hilarious, not because you died, but because the lead up to that was so random. I mean, you could see it happening, right. But then the reaction of Clement, played by Dominic, and then George is like, "Why did you kill him?" Because he saw that right away. This is a nice guy. He was not the bad guy. Sorry, I didn't have time to think.
Right.
And I thought it was so hilarious. I laughed at it the first time, and then as I watched the film again, I stopped laughing as much because I was picking up on the other details. But that to me was like, you killed probably the absolute nicest person in the group, who probably not could have just helped out with the incoming Germans that are supposed to be arriving at the cemetery, but you probably killed the best chance of you guys all surviving. And this one guy killed him because of his motives of wanting to protect his friend, but then realizing, oh, there's the love of his life when he discovers later on, and then completely disregards that the killing of your character, if you will. So there was a lot more investment that I got than I always anticipate when I see Jesse's movies. But I also understand too that you had mentioned before that when Jesse had given you guys, the actors, the opportunities to take on some liberties on how you would approach the character, taking on some details that he had given you, and then you guys made some changes along the way to fit what would be best fitting to get the character's story. I started picking up on that as well too, especially when it came to Lewis's character, because because even when he's talking to George, he's not even looking at you.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, so there is a deeper approach than I anticipated. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't gone back to watch the film over and over and over again to pick up those finer details. So, when you guys were shooting this on the set, and you're going through the motions and seeing the way your character meets their demise. And when I'm asking this, I'm hoping you can understand where I'm coming from. But did you see that in a way as far as like having a negative impact for the story of where it could have gone, having your character remain there? Or do you think it served well for the purpose of the story of having your character die, and then, having the outcome to turn out the way that it did, because the one saving grace there could have possibly helped him survive had you been around?
Or I'm gonna give you a third one, which is kind of comical.
Okay.
Always bug Jesse with, because Jesse loved killing off everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, Jesse, I think it would be cool at the very end, you just get a shot of my finger, just move. You find me in the dirt, and you just see my finger move, and then the film just ends. You just see it.
That's amazing. What did he say to that?
He looked at me, he's like, He gave me a look. Jesse gave me a look. He's like, because he knows I'm the kind, like, if he give me a soliloquy, I'll cut it down if I think I can get it done. I'll ask him, look, I know you gave me this, which is something unheard of by actors. Actors never cut lines. They usually want to add stuff. But because I come from a writing background and I know how to say as much without needing all of this, I said, look, Jesse, I can get this in this space, you know. And my thing has always been, because again, I produce my own stuff, I directed, I've written. I wanted to do like Jesse does, what's best for the project.
Right.
So, though, as an actor, obviously, I saw so many different ways, you know, of how keeping him around, because I think that's when we really could have seen the stuff that I had to play internally.
Right.
See, you picked up when he said, go, just like go fetch.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Like go fetch. It wasn't like, take your black ass. He basically just said, just take your black ass on over there and just go. I mean, you know, and that's not what the dialogue was, but that essentially what the actions were. Just go over there. And I think if there had been a way to elongate his existence, you could have seen a lot more of that, because I think, you know, and there were moments when Nina was thrown on the ground and his reaction to her
I remember.
being pushed down. And he goes to, you know, so even from that small gesture, he kept looking like, yo, what's up? You know, he was totally different. But see, it takes someone to watch it multiple times, because if you watch it just once, you'll see that and it'll skip. You see me being sent off, and that'll leave you. You see me inside and conversations, and you think, okay, it's fine, it's great, yada, yada, yada. But only if you watch it multiple times do you realize that, as you just pointed out, and I'm glad you noticed, that he basically is the heart of the film. Yeah. The compassionate part. Anyway. Yeah. You know, I've read some reviews, which is very interesting, and not many of the reviews mention it. You know, not many of the reviews. And I'm like, how do you not mention the black dude in 1944?
Yes, I'm glad you said, because I was doing the review for the movie and I haven't finished it just yet, because because I told you before, I've seen the movie more than once, because I always find new set of details that I have not noticed the first time around, or I did notice, but then I examined a little bit further to kind of get an idea. And what I started to notice with my review is that I was going for about 2 hours. I do condense it to make it digestible. But when I was talking about, there were so many things that I was getting into about what I loved about the movie. But then when I started getting to the negatives, which I'm going to talk to you right now, the biggest negative that I had with this movie, and I even know I talked to Jesse and I understood where he was coming from, and I understand the circumstances. My only real problem with the movie, it's way too short. That's the only problem that I have with the film, because the characters, we talked about your characters, but I briefly talked about Lewis's character. We have Tim's character, Dom's character, Nina's, and Luke, Daniel, and the core cast, right? And Charles Faddy.
Yes.
So everyone in the film has a very unique aspect about them, and Jesse's point of view was that, I understand the timing is an issue there, but is that I'm going to leave the rest for the audience to kind of figure it out for themselves, and I agree with that. But what the problem that I did have with it was that, once your character died, that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, this guy was really important.
I died?
Your character.
I died. They killed me.
So, because I know you are, I know, but I'm just pointing out that, when I saw that, I was like, they killed the probably the biggest secret weapon they could have right now. I mean, I really mean that, because obviously, you had survived the previous assignments you guys were on, and then they saw value in you in that regard. So it wasn't just, I don't think it was just simply about, he's a good translator, he can translate for it. It wasn't just, I think they noticed something else about you too. Right. He's good at this, but we don't see that. So, and then same thing with Von Bruckner's character. There's a complicated layer about the character where he's also very sympathetic too, because he's not, I mean, he is the bad guy more or less, but you don't really actually see him do anything evil.
Right.
You know, he's just in love with a woman, and he got betrayed, and he's obviously spiteful towards her. But then at the very end, you know, he's like, you know, I still love you, and then she stabs him. You know, and I'm like, holy shit. So it's like you can't trust any of these characters, which is why I loved Nina's character too, because she was a very complicated character as well. Same thing with Dom's character, where he, you know, when I listened to Dom talk about his interpretation of the character, it made more sense for me. And then rewatching it again, I'm picking up all those little details too. And I'm thinking, and I would have loved to seen how he first met Marie, and then how that infatuation kicked in for him, and then where it had developed from there. Because you do get the exposition, you get that one little like internal flashback that he started developing in his mind, how he would like to have a family with her. And then seeing Marie's introduction to von Bruckner, the soldiers, and how they grabbed, you know, each of the team, put the team together, and then come out there. Like there's so much that I felt like if more time, more money, more resources, I think this movie would have. I mean, I still love the film, but I think it still could have turned out to be a lot more. A lot better. I was saying, I don't, when I'm trying to say, I'm trying to be very careful how I say, because I don't want to make it seem as if it wasn't good. It's not that. It's just that it's good, but I feel like the more time you had with it, I really think you could have a much more deeper connection with the characters. Notice that I focus more on that, just on the characters. That was my biggest thing. I want more time with them. You guys were great.
But that's what where I think Jesse's brilliance. Really,
I don't disagree with him though. I'm not saying that he was wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I think he was correct.
Right.
But that's just the selfish side of me. Like I love the characters, and I want
absolutely. I think there's a lot more with Private Vic, Victor Shelby, and I have this habit. I always in every film I find a way
to put your daughter's name.
My daughter's name.
Yep.
Always have.
I noticed that.
And people were wondering, like, you play a lot of Shelbys and Nicole's, and they like, how did? And no one really knows that that's my little homage to my Munchkin. But anyway, it's when because of the book and the script and everything that this all came from, this information came from, you know, that's what happened to this guy who I played. That was his character. He literally, this is what transpired. And because a lot of this is based on true stuff, and some stuff from books, and they pull certain things from here and there. And this particular happened, and immediately Jesse was like, you know what, I'm so sorry that you have to be the first one to die. This is kind of like cliche that the brother dies right away.
It crossed my mind. Yeah, I know.
And so he was aware of that, so I didn't have to say it. But when you get a chance to be in a Jesse B. Johnson film, he could have picked anyone. You know, he has that kind of cachet right now that any actor would have been honored. For some reason, he keeps calling my number. You know, then he goes and does White Elephant, Bruce Willis, John Malkovich, Joe Carolico, Michael Rooker, and Joseph Cannon. Huh? What? It's like, you know, you're thankful that someone appreciates your work.
Yeah.
And so you trust, is my point.
Right.
So when to be long-winded, or when I saw the script and I saw what transpired with Private Vic, I immediately looked at who, you know, they say don't kill the messenger for the message. I immediately looked at the messenger. I know who my messenger is. And I know that my messenger is not bringing me something. He's not like, hey, I'm gonna have you in there, and then you're gonna cut your neck and then you're done. you know, he knew, and we sat and we tried to do as much with that, which to me I think is a great challenge when you have a character that's in it, but still can be the most poignant one in a sense.
Right.
And with the film being so short, I think the great thing about it is it's a very enjoyable. I was having this conversation with a young lady, friend of mine, about how, imagine sometimes you sit through a movie and you're like, God, when is this?
Yeah.
You're sitting in your seat and you're moving around. And oh my God, when is, you know, can this end?
Yeah.
You know, can we finally get to the end? But in this, it goes so fast. You're like, wow, I want more. And I think if we have a choice between those two desires, the wanting more desire is always the better, I believe.
Yep, I agree.
You know, and so again, because Jesse, again, he's very, I've worked with many directors, writers, but he's just brilliant.
Yeah.
That and how he sees it, and you know, and he cuts, and he doesn't matter. It could be, you know, Denzel. If this is a little too much, I'm gonna have to get rid of it. Not bad, but I'm gonna have to get rid of it. And he does that because he's constantly thinking the flow of the story. He really is concerned about the audience.
Right.
That's why he has a return audience, you know, because of the fact they know that if you're going to see a Jesse V. Johnson movie, some shit gonna get blown up, somebody gonna get shot, and then there's gonna be moments where you get this, and he does each one very well, you know, and to be a part of that is a very special thing to be included.
You know, when I'm sure you've had plenty of conversations with him. You know, when I listen to him talk, because I've talked to him on more than one occasion, but you know, I asked him a question on something and he just goes off. And you know, for me, it's like I love that because when he provides some insight about just little set of details with experience working on set, working with actors, and then providing some additional insight that, you know, I was not thinking about, and then he's, you know, changing my perception a little bit. He presented to you guys.
You know, my thing with Jesse, I always say, like at the rap of White Elephant, I say, you know what, you're my Quentin Tarantino, and I'm your Samuel Jackson. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you, baby.
I love that. You know, I never thought of that, but I love that. I think that's
man,
a really good analogy. Yeah.
You know, I got 3 Jesse VJs under my belt. No, come on, I'm good. You know, and each one he just allows me to just run with it, which is great because very rare will the director give you a chance to kind of help bring it to life like that.
Right.
You know, and I again, because you know, I think I appeal to the writer side of him. I come from that place. I come with research on why, you know, is this way, and I like to discuss how I'm playing it. When I mentioned to him that I'm thinking of the Ali speech when he's doing the press conference, he's walking through the hallway. You're my Preston, you're my, and that's the way I felt Private Vic was living internally. You know, you know, and he's in this battle. And again, I've seen certain reviews, and all the reviews have been fantastic. Knock on wood, and hope they continue to be. Yeah. You know, but I did notice, and this is not from an actor perspective. This is the filmmaker. Now, the filmmaker in me, and this is to all the other reviews out there, I hope y'all watching. How do you miss the brother in 1944 in this period and not understand the significance of that?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I love when Jesse decided to make the character. He wasn't doing it just so he could add a little sprinkle of, you know, chocolate in the film. There was a point behind it.
Right.
You know, and we're hoping through the performance that, but I think it's something that if people watch it multiple times, they will get, because I know Jesse did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
In shooting it, that they will get that. But I think that's something you can't, if you remiss on that, it's kind of like that old Sesame Street thing. One of these things are unlike the other. One of one of these things are not like the other. And it's funny. So you watch it and you think, okay, cool. You know, yes, that's, you know, there were black soldiers in 1944, but they normally weren't mixed. They were normally separated. Yeah. You know, and then for him to still be amongst this group, and even my respect for Major Mate. Yeah. You know, even when I'm having my conversation with George and I'm, you know, discussing how Major Mate is cool. You know, he just got lost. He just got lost somewhere along the way. I understand Now those other two, those other two, and that's why I incorporated some of my stuttering. Those other two. It was their thing because he could see the difference. He knows the difference between a man who is torn by war, who has been changed. I believe Major Maitland was changed because of war. I've seen him still a good man, but I could see where he got lost somewhere along the way because of war.
Yeah, like.
And then there's some people you see, you like, you know, they were an asshole at birth. You know?
Like Tim's character.
Exactly. Tim's character was born an asshole. You know? So, and you know, and that's the beauty, you know, when you watch it. But see, if you watch it the first time, you enjoy it, then you go through it. Then, you know, then you sit down. But see, you can do that with 94 minutes or 90 minutes. It gives you an opportunity to go back and watch it again and catch something. And I think that's where I say the brilliance of Jesse is, if you go through it one time and, you know, like Chinese food, you're good, you're hungry again in a few minutes. But if you watch it a couple of times, you're like, wow. You know, and then you kind of focus, like on 2 or 3 different characters that you didn't focus on before. You start to notice certain things. Yep. And you like, okay, I this is interesting. You know, and I'm glad you picked up on the part of the scene where I'm talking about home. I'm talking about and the jazz and just the city and everything.
Yeah, the greatest city in the world. Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's. And I actually went to Jesse with that. I said, look, you mind if I switch this up? Because I said, this is what I think would be very interesting. Here's a guy in the middle of shit. And they're doing something that he's not really cool with. But he just wanted to be home. Like he says, you know, I close my eyes and I think of that music.
Yeah, I remember that.
He just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
He just wanted to be at home. And I think that's the thing. He was Dorothy. And his combat boots was his ruby slippers. He just wanted to just be home. Because everything that's going on out there, how they torturing this girl, he's like, that's not right. He says it. He talks about how it's not right. You know, he wasn't one to go on. I mean, you know, I had said once before to my girl, I said, what I love about him speaking French is I could see him at some point in time cursing them out and nobody know. Because when you have all this built up tension, you have to let it out. So I could see him. They walking, they driving, whatever, at some point in time. And this is what I explained to Jesse. I could just see him saying something in French, and because they don't understand it, he was able to just kind of smile to himself and just cuss them out, and they had no idea that he called them every name underneath the, you know, under the sun. And so whenever I play a character, I like to go deep. I think about my life, go back to the gumbo soup situation. Things with my daughter, life in general, from Chicago, just everything. And I tried to do that for every single character. I tried to figure out, where did this character come from? Why is this happening? You know, 1 second. Oh, my brother was like, I think I'm just watching one of your movies. He's like, he just hit me up. He goes, I think I just want to watch one of your movies, you know. It's kind of funny. But I do have to say something. I know it has nothing to do with him.
That's fine. Go on.
But it does have something to do with Louis Mandelaar and I. We had did a horror film years ago. It was wonderful. It was a horror film, Paranormal, one of the Paranormal films.
Oh,
Paranormal 616. Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen it. I know. Trust me. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's Paranormal 616, and this always comes up to me in my head whenever I have an interview. I've never had an opportunity to talk about it, so you getting this at the end of this, even if you just save it for our own little humor.
Sure.
A great buddy of mine, comedian G. Rao.
Okay.
He's on the Fluffies tour. Gabriel Iglesias.
Oh, I know I know exactly who he is now.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's on Fluffies tour, and one day he's very supportive. We're supportive of each other, artists and stuff. And he was actually in a film of mine, and so he talks about that film with me and Louis. And he says he ran out and he got a speeding ticket. And he came and showed me the speeding ticket. He says, man, you see the speeding ticket? I'm like, yeah, what happened? He goes, I was rushing to return this shit back to the red box before midnight. I would rather get a $75 ticket than spend another dollar. To spend another dollar to one more day on this shit. I thought that was the funniest review of any movie I've ever had.
That's the best review.
I would rather spend $75 speeding ticket than spend another dollar at Redbox for this movie. To me, that's better than 2 thumbs up right there.
That's hilarious. I love that. That's so funny.
Oh, G. Riley, my man.
It's funny because I was actually going to see that movie too. When I was talking to Louis, I talked to him a few months ago, and we were talking for quite some time before we finally got that set up here. And I was going through his filmography. I was like, how many movies has he done? And I got to check this movie and that movie, and that was one of the films that came across. And I'll be honest with you, I remember thinking, I don't know if I want to see that movie right now because I know he's been
$1. I'll send you $1, man. If you get in the box, I got you, man. I just send a lot of people dollars, man. I've been like, my friends, if you don't like it, let me know. They call me, don't give me $1, man. I need my $1. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't an extra dollar back good. You know, he was like, you know, he was like, it was cool, but I'm not gonna spend $1 for this.
Well, either way, I'm a big fan of Louis. And I'm not joking when I say that Louis has become like one of my absolute favorite actors of all time ever since I saw the first Debt Collector movie, which at the time I didn't realize that I'd seen him in other films as well too. And then just off that performance alone, I was like, I got to see who this guy really is. And then, you know, like I said, looking to Scott, Jesse, and then all the other set of actors that they've all worked with, like it just became like an avalanche of like more and more people that I was never aware of before. And I'm like, how these guys are not, you know, I mean, Louis is working in great movies, but you know, anyways, I already said that from the beginning.
Well, I think,
but
you know, I think with Jesse, I think what happens, there are directors that come along and they create their own team. Spielberg has done it, Scorsese, everyone, all the great ones. And I'm putting Jesse in that category. I think people will look back on this, and this is going to be Jesse's renaissance. It's going to be people going to look back at his filmography and be like, yeah, he brought up Louis, Scott, Josef Cannon. He's going, you know, Dominique. You know, he's, you know, Luc Lafontaine. I mean, there's going to be a retrospect when people look back and see the artists that Jesse has helped launch their career. You know, he gives them opportunities to do things. Like I said before, I'm a debt collector. You know, I was just happy to be a debt collector too. The next thing you know, he's calling me up. I'm in the room with Malkovich, Booker, Bruce Willis, over Karen Rico. And it's like, that right there shows a progression, and that he brings his team on, but also too, because of the way he works and the way his mind works, when you have people who are familiar with his approach, it slices a third, minimal, a third of the process that would happen on most films.
Right.
It's I mean, he's worked with Dom, he's worked with myself, he's worked with Tim. I think he's worked with Tim before. I'm not quite sure. But
Yeah,
he's worked with
Tim on more than one occasion.
Yes, exactly. And Nina, so to have us and then Luke, to have this core here, this short hair, and you know, and filming it under the conditions that we did, he needed that. You know, he needed to have a group that he didn't have to hold their hand, navigate.
Yeah, he said that before.
Goals. There was no time to be like, look, we all get bit by mosquitoes. We all in the heat, you know. Yes, no one's phone is working. We understand we in the middle of nowhere, you know. It's like he didn't have to worry about that because we were all this group that understood the bigger picture, the bigger goal.
Here's what I wanted to ask you too. You know, when you're going through the motions of your career right now, are you starting to feel more of the what I mean by success is that the opportunities that are starting to arise, because working with Jesse and then having him call you back, hey, I want you to work on with this project now, and then done with that project, come back again to do another one here. Like, do you feel like that things have started to, you're starting to feel the change in the momentum of your career, improving as far as the work that you're starting to get with in your career? Like, do you feel like it's gotten better as a result of you knowing some people that have taken appreciation to what you've done and then want to give you more opportunities as a result of that? Like, do you feel like that has changed for you?
Absolutely. I think what has helped, especially with Jesse, is he's allowed, if you look at the characters I played in all three films,
Right.
completely different.
Right.
Totally different. Totally, from thug ass dude from Debt Collector 2
Yeah.
to the heart in Hell Have No Fury to the sensei, best friend of in White Elephant, mentor. It's same guy, but he sees different levels, right? So now when you are able to go in for the projects, normally you see people, they all look the same, they play the same roles, especially with African Americans.
Typecasting.
Yes, and I've been very cognizant when I watch, and I get into this conversation a lot. That's why television is kind of tough for me.
Okay.
Television is tough for me because I don't fit, well, far as the ABC, NBC type shows, meaning they have a type when it comes to us. Bald head brother with a goatee. I can give you a list from Shamar Moore to Tay Diggs to Boris Kojo to Morris Chestnut. You go through Rockman Dunbar. You see a brother on TV, he's bald head with a goatee. Think about it now. When you go back, you start watching TV shows, you get, wait a minute. And that's what happens. You observe and you start to notice that. And I think for any artist, you need to notice where your space is at. Whether it's theater, whether it's comedy, whether it's drama, whether it's film, television, you need to know that. Because I think sometimes we make the mistake as artists and we think, okay, I can do everything. No, it's not the fact that you can't do everything. But if the gatekeepers, if the powers that be are only seeing you this way, it don't matter what I do. I can stand up there and dance and do whatever. That if that's not how they see it, it's not going to change. So it takes someone like a Jesse to see this character who does not look like Joseph, but he sees the essence of Joseph as a performer and be like, you know what? Joseph Cannon for this role. Joseph Cannon can do this French dude.
Interesting.
I will put, and so when you get people like Jesse, that's why I said before, change comes only from the change makers.
Interesting. Yeah, you got a
good
point.
You need change makers to come in. Quentin Tarantino did. He took the script industry and turned it upside down. Okay, I'm gonna start with the end and then work backwards and do sideways and be jumping around. And first everybody was like, "What the hell is he doing?"
Yeah.
This is not linear. It's not going. No, he took it, and now it's hard to see a film that doesn't have a Quentin little touch. Same will come with Jesse. Whether it's the actors that he's brought in, Dominique, romantic man. Come on, dog. Oh, my man, dog got a chance to really think about the mercenary exercising his romantic chops. Only Jesse V. Johnson would pull some shit out like that.
Okay.
So when you have someone who doesn't see you and be like, okay, yeah, you my black gangbanger. In my next 12 films, in every film, I'm the black gangbanger. I'm the one, then change won't occur. But if you have someone whose creativity paints this canvas completely different, same colors, but he finds a way to, and that's what Jesse does.
You actually said it in such a profound way, because I usually think that I know Jesse's approach, but the way you described it to me about him and you're describing yourself and whoever else you work with here, I understand better now why Jesse likes working with you, and obviously you guys have a good relationship.
That's why I love working with Jesse, because remember Nina did his version of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, in the trailer. Yeah.
Trailer, and she came to this just so we can have the reader there for the rest of us.
Right.
And so, but she showed up ready. She just didn't come in and say, I read it. No, she did research with the thought of just a possible chance. He might consider me, you know, it was such a sliver. And imagine, this is what I think is so beautiful about cinema. It's like, can you imagine anybody else but Michael J. Fox being Marty McFly?
Yeah.
Those who know the backstory know that there was another Marty McFly.
Yeah. Eric Stoltz. Yep.
Eric Stoltz, exactly. But now you think, how can there be anyone but that's the same way I think about Nina Bergman in Hell Hath No Fury. When you see her performance,
yeah,
and you think, wow, they came this close
yep,
to it not being her. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because when you watch it, you think this was built for her.
Yeah.
How she went there. And I remember the haircutting scene. And I'm in the trees and I'm looking down and I'm watching. And because the way the shot was set up,
right.
I'm positioning to watch. I'm crying. I'm literally looking at her, and this is not a wig they're cutting. This is her hair. And they shaving her hair off. And because it was her actual hair, and yes, that was one of the criteria that Jesse wanted from whatever actress that he received is, look, we're gonna have to cut your hair and it ain't gonna be pretty, you know. And she sat there and I'm watching it. And even though I'm completely off camera, I want to run and be like, stop, yo, okay, you know, just protect her. And that only occurred because of the fact that she wore it. And when the scene ended, there was a moment where everyone just stood there and we looked at her and everybody was like, you okay? I remember mouthing from the tree, looking down at her going, you know, she looked up and, you know, and she made contact with whoever was right there because it was a real close, confined space for her. And we all were protective, even more so protective because, you know, in the film, she's pretty much the only female for the most part, right? Yeah. And here you are in that particular scene, you surrounded by not just the 6 men that's right there doing all the damage, but you got the cameras and everything, you know, we all nestled there and she's sitting in this hot seat. Again, if Jesse didn't stop to think, he listened, we all went up to him and had our thoughts about Nina should be, I don't know what your thoughts are, but we dig Nina. We dig Nina. And Jesse, to his credit, was like, you know what? I hear you guys, and you're right. And now the results show when you watch the film that it was a brilliant decision on his part.
Yeah, she's fantastic in the movie, and that's the thing about the Jesse's films that you like. For me, I whenever I watch a Jesse's film, there's always a brand new actor that I've always come across, one or more that I pick up on. Maybe I might not notice them right away in the first round, but the second, third, fourth, and or the subsequent films that come after the fact. If again, I said before, if he's bringing them back or he's working with them again, there's a good reason for that, in my opinion, because I think he's very cognizant about what they can bring and what they're capable of pulling off. You know, he's Dominic's told me before in the past that, you know, Jesse pushes him all the time because he knows that Dominic can handle it. But he probably can't do that with some of the other actors, but Dominic can do that. So, Bono, you're going to do this here, but I'm also going to give you an opportunity to try this here because I know you can do that. But can you jump out of the tree, please, right now? You know, like that relationship, I think, is really unique about those two.
And that's what, real quick, to piggyback on that, that's what made me comfortable to an earlier comment you made about the size of the role. In doing it, I watched how he did, even with Scott Adkins, when he first got together with Scott. Small little, you know, Lewis, same way. And so, you know, Dom, you see the way his trajectory when he works with actors. You may see him in the beginning, they'll be there, but you really can't pay attention. Then you see him again. Then after a while, it's kind of like going through high school and you in your freshman year, like the first film is your freshman year, right?
Yeah.
You know, Then your second year, you're sophomore.
Yeah.
Your junior year, you kind of feeling yourself because you're like, yeah, I'm man. Then your senior year, like Louis, like for this is Louis, this is like Louis' senior year, this one, because the way he played it, the way he brought the things he brought to Major Make is from Debt Collector 1 and 2. You go back and you see his growth, and you see the way he's able to just take it, and Jesse gives us room. He gives every actor room, especially when he trusts your work and he knows that you're going to try to deliver his vision. He gives us room to play. And I say to any actor out there, if you're watching this, try to get on the Jesse B. Johnson project because you will be in Disneyland. It is a Disneyland.
Love that.
It is a Disneyland. It is a Disneyland. It is a Disneyland. And don't mess around and give this man the right budget. Oh my God. Oh my God. You give him the right budget, it's over.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Jesse's too, that his films, that there's virtually no budget in comparison to Hollywood standards, but I would say 95% of the films he's worked on, they don't feel anything less than that. They feel they have a much higher value behind them, because I think Jesse's very smart, because this is a problem that I have a lot of directors who try to give more than they really should. And I think Jesse knows his limitations about where those constraints are going to be taking place at, and then finding other avenues to try to elevate the story, or elevate the film, to not make it more than it actually really seems, but then give it that bigger feel to it. Like when I watch Hell Hath No Fury, for some reason, I don't know if this was intentional, but I kept thinking of Kurosawa. Like it had a little bit of that element to it. And I thought this seems so similar to a Kurosawa feeling. And I'm not sure if it was intending on doing it that way. And I'm sure he may have. I never actually asked him. But you can see the influences that he has, and he tries to incorporate when the opportunity is given to that, because this movie definitely has a much bigger scope to it, a much bigger feel to it, a very, in some ways, a cleaner palette to it as well, too, in comparison to some of his previous films. So I think that, with what he's been able to accomplish with this movie, I really do hope that this will catapult him for more opportunities that will be presented to him. And with the reviews that are coming out that I've come across as well, too, have been, for the most part, that I've gathered, that I've come across, have all been positive, and for good reason too. But I also hope that people not just focus just on him, but the cinematography, the screenwriting, the scoring by Sean Murray, and then you also have the other actors as well too, the set designs, the costuming, all that stuff is really, really important. That, again, upon rewatching it, I picked up on it more and more. I was like, wow, this is really, really accurate stuff that he's been able to put up on the screen, and the vehicles are from that era. The guns at one particular scene that they have all in front of them, those are legitimate arsenal. They were from that period that he put on there. People are not going to notice that stuff. But the fact that he was able to put that on there, it's something that shows that he really does care about those little important details.
Well, I thank you, because I think he doesn't get a lot of just, and I think only someone who has watched his project over and over again sees the growth and the progression. Right. And it's only a matter of time before Jesse is doing a Marvel or one of those $200 or $300 gazillion projects, and hopefully he wants me in a cape so I can fly. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. So Jesse, remember, I could be Superman in any way, shape, or form. But no, I just think that, it's just, no, really, seriously, it's just a matter of time before he gets that opportunity. And, his storytelling is definitely elite. And I'm glad that the people who work with him are starting to get their just dues. I think that's another reason why I'm patient. I know that it will come. But it takes authors like Jesse to see it. Because sometimes people don't realize that someone can do something different until someone else notices it. That's just human nature. Mm-hmm. Most of us, we put you in a slot and you get pegged as that dude all the time. Jesse doesn't do that. He literally wants you to, if anything, he's just the opposite. He doesn't want you to play the exact same character. He wants you to be something different. And it's great when you have a director that sees that. And I think that will open up other opportunities, because now when I go indoors, besides the other stuff that I've done, you have this trilogy of things with Jesse, which all three of them are so vastly different.
Yeah.
In scope, even in look. goatee in one. I got this full beard. This is the white elephant look right here.
Oh, okay.
And then in Hell Have No Fury, I'm clean shaven with short hair.
Yeah.
With GI cut. So wouldn't have had those three if it wasn't for Jesse. So and that way.
You were almost unrecognizable because I remember from Debt Collector 2, I mean, I look back at it now and I notice I know who you are, but when I look at it, it's not this. You don't look the same at all. Like I almost didn't believe it at first. I was like, this is the same guy that was in Debt Collectors 2, and when I'm watching it again, it's like he looks nothing like that guy that I saw in Hell and Fury, because obviously you have the gear on, and that you have the dirty look on it and clean shaven, and I thought that was something that was so unique that made me appreciate the opportunities that you were given to take on a whole new look and then actually become that character. Seeing from what we saw in Debt Collectors 2, and then in this movie, and now obviously with White Elephant, which I'm very curious to see how that's going to turn out. I'm always excited to see what the next evolvement for the actor that Jesse's working with again, to see where we've seen them from, for where we are now, as I've already mentioned before. But I think that that's something that shows a lot about you as an actor, as an artist, that the screen is a canvas and you are painting the image that you want the audience to see, of course, with these collaborations that come with that. Because I got to give you a lot of credit. It's very rare that I actually get to see an actor who I've seen before, didn't recognize, and then see them again in another project that I realized were the same people previously. So I got to give you a lot of props for that, because honestly, I when Jesse told me that's the same guy who was in Debt Collectors, like, really? I was like, oh, okay, I think I saw the name, but let me double check. And I was like, holy shit. So yeah, kudos to you, man. That was really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate this. I'm glad that you enjoyed the film. Yeah. And hopefully you watch it a few more times.
Oh, I plan on buying it too as well. So
thank you. It's it's a blessing to be a part of it. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people.
I think so too.
I was talking to my girl and I was telling her, I says, she asked me, how do you think this is going to go? And I said to her, I really think this is going to be that one, that's going to sneak up on people, because, yes, with COVID and a lot of people not going to the theaters, but some are now coming back. And yes, we have another Marvel's movie coming out on the same day and everything else. But then there are people who really just want to see like a Dirty Dozen or Kelly's Heroes type war movie. And that's how I kind of liken this. Our film is more that than Save It Private Ryan. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. More of a Dirty Dozen thing, and that kind of vibe. And I'm Jim Brown. That's okay. With that one, So, but I think, and I was explaining to her, I said, I really think because of the length, it will grab a lot of people, because you walk out of there thinking, okay, I could have done more. My grandmother used to always have this saying when she would send me to go visit friends. She'd always tell me, don't have anybody tell you it's time to leave. Never overstay your welcome. Don't overstay your welcome. Don't wait till someone's going, oh my God, I think you're going to go to bed. She goes, if we get to that point, you've stayed too long.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about this. He does not allow for anyone to get to that yawning phase. When it comes to a closure, you're like, that's it? That's it? That's all we got? And that in itself is like a great ride in an amusement park. There's nothing more exhilarating than a quick, fast ride. And you're like, I could do that shit again. I'll get back on that ride again. And we've done it. Every kid, if anybody has gone to an amusement park and enjoy rides, that's what we do. When it's a good ride, we will get out of line and get back in line again immediately. And that's what I think Hell Have No Fury is. It's that kind of roller coaster ride.
Listen, thank you so much for reaching out to me and, and saying those nice things. And then also taking the time out of your day to speak with me on this here, because I said it before on with many interviews I've done, and I always mean it every time I say it. I always like to look for the underdogs. That's what I'm more interested in the industry. The underdogs. It's I always figure the underdogs have something that's more compelling to gravitate to, because when you see what they've done, what they've gone through, and what they've done, and then see the progression, as I mentioned before, that's really where I think people will connect with the most. And that's what I'm hoping that people get out of this year when it comes to listening to your story and hearing your thoughts on Jesse, the film, your own personal journey. You're sharing your insight about your upbringing with your grandmother, giving these wonderful set of advices, and then your perception and your knowledge on how the industry works, but also at the same time how to deal with the hardships that come with it as well too. And that's what I hope this will accomplish. And then in turn, he sounds like a nice guy. I want to check out the movie now. That's what I really hope will happen. So I really can't thank you enough for giving me the time out of your day to speak with me. And I think what you've shared was very impactful. And I'll be completely honest, I actually learned a lot just by listening to you talk. And I think that's something that Jesse, in my opinion, probably has also gotten from you as well too. You probably learned a lot from your writing that you have shared with him, and also with the character development you worked on, and among other things, I would imagine too. So I can see why Jesse took a liking to you, and only that, but I'm hoping that other people will take notice of that as well too, and then the opportunities will come from that. That's what I'm hoping for. So I will also make sure to have everything linked up as far as your social media accounts, your website. I'll have all that on the description for people to look into and checking you out here. And then if there's anything down the line as far as any upcoming projects you're working on, if there's a way that I can help out, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to help promote with whatever you've got working on, so that way I can spread the word out there for you as well too. Because I really do believe in what you're doing now, especially having this conversation. I think I think people need to see more of you. For what you're going to be doing in the upcoming projects you have coming down the pipeline here. So is there anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I appreciate you. I want everyone, by the time this come out, they should have already seen Hell Hath No Fury, but
Yes.
maybe they can go back and see it again multiple times, because I do believe it's that kind of film.
Yes.
That you have to see it a few times to really get a lot of the hidden gems.
Yes.
That are there. Because there's things that when you process and you see it, I know now, one of the things I've always done is I go back and I watch things 80 gazillion times.
Right.
And I'll always find something unique that I missed somewhere before. And I think that's what we can do here. We can do the same thing with Hell Hath No Fury. I thank you. I thank everyone that's watching and listening, and for them to tune in. If you're new to this channel, tune in to his channel, Rob, and thank you for having me, man.